Joining us to talk about that and much more, GOP political strategist, co-founder of MustReadTexas.com. It's Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Chad. Good morning. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I did.
As well. Let's talk about Donald Trump and the transition right now. I think all eyes are focused on Secretary of State. Donald Trump has made a lot of other announcements as far as the transition goes. Secretary of State is playing out in the media. It's played out behind the scenes. Where are we at right now as far as Mitt Romney and the other, I guess candidates you could call them for Secretary of State?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there was obviously a little bit of back and forth over the weekend with particularly Kellyanne Conway, the campaign manager for Trump's presidential campaign, really kind of going after Romney on the Sunday shows in a way that I think was a little bit unprecedented. There is clearly, there are clearly factions within Trump's organization. Some that believe Romney would be a great way to reach out to the establishment, have a credible Secretary of State who could be very effective, who could get confirmed easily, who could do the job. And then there's the other side that really wants to reward Rudy Giuliani's loyalty, and is going after Romney as a way to try to force Trump to choose Giuliani. And so what is Trump doing? Trump is essentially trying to broaden his choices. He has David Petraeus, former CIA director, former general in the Middle East for American forces, interviewing today. Looks like he's interviewing Senator Bob Corker, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee chairman, tomorrow, and Romney's coming in again tomorrow. And there may be one or two other names in the mix as well. Marine General John Kelly, retired, and who knows, there might be one or two other names. So, it's interesting. I don't know what's going on. I remain of the opinion if Trump could get Romney, that would be a huge coup. I'm not convinced Giuliani would be able to be confirmed or would do a good job. I think he's a very competent person. I think he's a better fit for a number of other roles in the cabinet, like Attorney General or perhaps Homeland Security Secretary. I'm not sure Secretary of State is his highest and best use. So we'll see how this plays out. I mean, clearly they're at a position where they feel an inability to make other appointments in the cabinet until they make the top appointments, because the top appointments affect who's available for the second and third tier cabinet appointments. So we're a little bit on hold, I think, until Trump makes a decision about Secretary of State, which could come in the next 48 hours.
If Trump was sold on Rudy Giuliani, or maybe if he was sold on any of these guys, it seems to me that he would have already made the pick, that he already would have made the choice. And he's still meeting. I mean, you've got, like you said, there are factions. Someone has to be telling Kellyanne Conway to go out to the media and slam Mitt Romney. Is that a Bannon deal? I mean, do we have any way of knowing, or maybe predicting or assuming which side that's coming from? I mean, if Donald Trump is still meeting with Mitt Romney tomorrow, then it can't be Donald Trump sending Kellyanne Conway out and saying, "Hey, go slam him real quick." I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. No, I think Kellyanne Conway is doing what she thinks is best, not necessarily what Donald Trump wants her to do. And keep in mind, I mean, she had a role as campaign manager, and now she's a, quote, senior advisor to the transition, but her role going forward has not been announced. Now, she has said she was offered a big job. I think she's trying to imply she was offered White House Chief of Staff and turned it down. She has small children. She lives in New York. She has a business there. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Look, the whole thing is puzzling. Staff should not criticize principals. You learn that if you've ever worked on Capitol Hill or on the Texas legislature. When you put your name up and you run for office and you get elected, you deserve a level of respect that continues for the rest of your life. And if you've never done that, you shouldn't be criticizing principals. I had a former boss, a U.S. Senator from Montana, who had a Democrat senator from Montana who was his colleague, who a lot of us didn't like very much. And one time he told us in very stern words, no one can criticize my Democrat colleague but me. And his point was, it's principal to principal, not staff to principal. And so I think Kellyanne Conway could probably maybe learn that lesson. There was some reporting on Morning Joe this morning that Trump is, quote, furious with what Conway did over the weekend. I don't know what's true and what's not. There are factions inside the Trump organization. I believe you have Reince Priebus on one side and Steve Bannon on another. Kellyanne Conway, I don't know where she fits. Look, there's a little bit of chaos there. But obviously, Rudy Giuliani really, really wants to be Secretary of State. He's fighting very hard for that. He's, talking about how many times he's been in Japan. I mean, it's just ridiculous that he's putting all these credentials out there in the way that he is, publicly campaigning for this. At the end of the day, I now think it's probably more likely that Trump doesn't choose either one of them than that he chooses one or the other. But I don't think Romney's out of the mix. He wouldn't be meeting again with Trump for a second time in New York tomorrow if he was out of the mix.
Yeah. What about Texans? Is there anywhere for Rick Perry, for Sid Miller, for Representative McCall, anywhere for them to land?
Yeah, I still think there is. McCall's name has been, not on the tip of the tongue the last 2 weeks, although I did see he's going to New York tomorrow to meet with President-elect Trump as well. I do think he's very much being considered for Homeland Security Secretary and is likely a finalist. Perry, I think, is very much in the mix as well. Energy, Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, probably in that order. But again, it's very hard to make decisions on second and third tier cabinet until you make decisions at the top. And so part of this is going to be once they get Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Homeland Security figured out, they can then go into those second and third tier cabinet agencies. So, I don't think Sid Miller will be credibly considered. I haven't seen his name. I haven't heard his name really in the last 2 weeks, although I guess that could change. But those two, and of course, Cruz, when and if, or maybe when President-elect Trump makes decisions about Supreme Court, if not the first choice, maybe the second or third choice, Cruz would definitely be a name I think that would be seriously considered. So I do think there will be Texans considered. There's another Texan, Kathleen White, who's former TCEQ commissioner, and now at Texas Public Policy Foundation, who's meeting with Trump today. I think she's being considered for EPA administrator. So there will be Texans in the cabinet. There's no question about that. Exactly who and exactly where, I think we're not going to know for a couple weeks.
Hey, listeners tweeted in a question. John Bolton, has his name even been floated anymore for Secretary of State?
It is. It's gotten less attention in the last week or so, and I'm a huge John Bolton fan. He had a rough time when he was put up for U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, and he essentially was not confirmed, so he was recess appointed by President Bush, 43. He did a very good job in that role, and he has a lot of fans. I think the question for him would be, would he be able to be confirmed? And so my sense is that since you're not hearing his name much in the last week or so, that ultimately that question has been answered in a negative way. I still think he's someone that could be a choice if Romney and Giuliani are not the choice. I think he's credible. He's clearly very, very knowledgeable. He has a very clear mind about good, right and wrong and good and evil in the world. And I think he would reform the State Department in a pretty impressive way. So my hope is he's still in the mix. I just haven't heard his name much in the last 6 or 7 days, and that's probably not a good sign for him.
Is for Secretary of State, and we keep talking, and you brought up numerous times, is this person confirmable? Is that because of Rand Paul and maybe one or two other senators that are on the fence of someone who may seem too hawkish?
You bring up a great point on Rand Paul. He basically doesn't matter except when he does, and he went on the Sunday shows last weekend and said that he would stand up against someone like John Bolton, who is more hawkish. And so the reason this matters is you got to get 60 votes to confirm a cabinet secretary, even if they use the 50 or 51 vote threshold because of what Harry Reid did. You only have 52 Republicans. So if you lose Rand Paul, you're down to 51. You can only really lose one more Republican. And so then it becomes a question of, well, do you have Susan Collins, the most moderate member from Maine? Do you have Jeff Flake, who's a moderate from Arizona? I mean, there's 3 or 4 or 5 others there who could go either way, depending on who's nominated. So that is the challenge. The challenge is, can you get 50 plus the vice president, or 51 without him, to get confirmed? And I think at the end of the day, the Trump administration is going to look at this and say, how many fights do we want when it comes to cabinet? Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, is going to be a fight. Betsy DeVos, education, is probably going to be a fight. Are there going to be any other? How many more fights do we want to fight at one time? And ultimately, that's, I think, part of why I think Romney's very much still in the mix. That is, he won't be a fight. He won't be a fight at all. He's credible. He improves the quality of the cabinet. He makes it more likely they can get more good people to join the cabinet. I really think Romney makes a lot of sense. If Trump can get him to say yes, I think it'd be a real coup. If he doesn't, that's where he goes to someone like Petraeus, perhaps John Kelly, someone like that.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Matt, in the Must Read Texas morning email that you sent out today, under the dirty laundry, I like that. The dirty laundry, you have a story from the Texas Tribune talking about members of the legislature with some ethics issues upon them.
Yeah, you've got I think three there. That all got reelected who have different ethics issues. Ron Reynolds is one. Donna Dukes is another who's been under criminal investigation and basically has announced she's resigning on the first day, creating a special election. So in some cases, these ethics problems don't often mean that incumbents automatically get defeated. It depends a lot on dynamics in those districts, the broader political environment, the strength of the challenger, all those kinds of questions. I mean, incumbents have huge advantages. You look at the Republican majority in the Texas House. It was 99 seats when this election cycle began. They're going to be at 95 if Rodney Anderson pulls through with his recount, which I think he will. So they will have lost a net of 4. That means only 4 incumbents out of 150 lost, and so that means 146 out of 150 House incumbents won. It just is a reminder of the strength of incumbency, the power of incumbency in races, particularly at the local level where you have name identification and financial advantages. Before
we let you go, and I'm sure you've put this on your website, mustreadtexas.com, you briefly bring it up in your email. You wrote about Ted Cruz and re-election and how he should go about it going into 2018.
Yeah, look, I don't necessarily think he needs advice, but Texas Monthly asked me to write something up, and I did. Look, he has a huge opportunity in the re-election to really run up the score. He's obviously worked hard to repair whatever damage was done with regard to delaying supporting Trump as the nominee. There will be some holdouts because of that, but I think he's repaired a lot of that damage. Now the opportunity is build the strongest statewide organization in the history of the state, raise $30 to $40 million. Try to limit the opportunity that a strong challenger could have. Someone like Michael McCall has made a lot of noise about running. We'll see if that's serious, particularly if he doesn't get Homeland Security Secretary. Keep in mind, whatever Cruz raises for U.S. Senate that he doesn't spend, he can then use to run for president in 2020. Now, I think that's less likely now since Trump won, but who knows, what'll happen or how it'll play out. So I think he's got a great opportunity to run a huge, very successful, well-funded, professional, data-driven re-election campaign and run up the score. And if he does that, he's going to be in very strong shape going forward, no matter how the cards end up getting played nationally.
Matt, tell people where they can sign up for your morning email and about mustreadtexas.com.
Yeah, all the top news, editorials, and blog items from around the state at mustreadtexas.com. You can sign up for our morning email, which more than 4,000 Texans subscribe to at mustreadtexas.com.
All right. As always, Matt, appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Have a great week. Take care.
You too.